Get control of yourself. That was the sentence echoing in Marcus Reynolds's head as he stared at his reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror. His knuckles were raw from punching the wall, his shirt damp with sweat, and his eyes bloodshot. He barely recognized the man looking back at him. He didn't need anyone to tell him he'd lost control. His job was on the line, his relationships were collapsing, and his own inner compass had spun wildly off course. But those 5 words, spoken by his high school football coach so many years ago, found a way to cut through the chaos. Marcus had always been talented. In high school, he was the quarterback everyone talked about. He had charm, drive, and discipline, or at least, that's what people thought. What they didn't see was the pressure he placed on himself. The sleepless nights. The anger he buried. The silence he lived in when things didn't go his way. For a while, that pressure had driven him to greatness. Until it didn't. Years later, Marcus was working as a project manager in a high-pressure tech company in Seattle. The competition was fierce, and expectations were relentless. Promotions were handed out like lottery tickets, rare and often undeserved. He began chasing success with the same fire he had as a teen athlete, but without the support system, without the coach, without the structure. And that's when it began to unravel. Marcus's relationship with his girlfriend, Emily, deteriorated first. "You're here but never present," she had said. He dismissed it at the time, too buried in work and self-doubt to see what she meant. Then came the fallout with his best friend, Julian, after a heated argument about loyalty and ambition turned ugly. His co-workers began to avoid him, afraid of setting off his temper. His boss started documenting his behavior. But this morning, was his lowest point. He'd received an email at 6:15 a.m. from HR, requesting a formal meeting regarding complaints about his conduct. That's when he lost it. That's when he punched the wall. Now, as Marcus stared at himself, he wasn't looking at a man who was angry with the world. He was looking at a man who was angry with himself. Get control of yourself. He whispered the words out loud this time. It wasn't just a sentence anymore. It was a directive. A turning point. A demand from the universe that if he wanted something different, he'd have to be something different. Marcus decided then and there that he wasn't going to lose to himself. Not anymore. He cleaned up his bleeding knuckles, got dressed, and went to the meeting. Not with anger, not with excuses, but with honesty. He apologized for his behavior. He asked for support. He requested a leave of absence to seek therapy and promised to return better. His boss, initially skeptical, saw something in Marcus's eyes that hadn't been there before. Accountability. Marcus's journey didn't transform overnight. True change rarely does. But he began showing up to therapy twice a week. He started journaling. At first, it was awkward and forced, but soon, his notebook filled with insights he never knew he had. He began exercising again, not to prove anything, but to reconnect with the discipline he'd lost. He cut out alcohol. He distanced himself from toxic influences. And he reached out to Emily, not to win her back, but to apologize, genuinely. She didn't respond right away. But when she finally did, it was with cautious respect. It was through therapy that Marcus discovered the root of his struggle wasn't the world around him. It was his relationship with himself. He'd never learned to sit with pain. He only knew how to run from it, to mask it with anger, ambition, and noise. Now, he was learning to sit still, to feel, to process. One day, during a quiet moment at the park, he overheard a father talking to his son who had just lost a little league game. The boy was crying. The father knelt down and said, "You can cry, but don't stay here. You hear me? Get control of your breath. Then your thoughts. Then your actions. You're stronger than this moment." Marcus closed his eyes. Stronger than this moment. That was it. That was the lesson. Self-control wasn't about denying emotion. It was about acknowledging it and then choosing how to respond. 6 months later, Marcus returned to work. He didn't ask for special treatment. He simply showed up, consistent and grounded. Slowly, his reputation rebuilt itself. Co-workers began to trust him again. One even came up to him after a meeting and said, "You've changed, man. In a good way." What happened? Marcus smiled. "I stopped losing to myself." He started mentoring junior employees. Not because it looked good, but because he remembered what it felt like to be lost. His story became part of his strength, not his shame. Eventually, Marcus created a side project called Control, a podcast and resource hub aimed at helping young professionals understand emotional regulation, workplace pressure, and mental health. It gained traction faster than he expected. Listeners reached out from all over the country, sharing how his vulnerability inspired them. Marcus became a speaker at conferences. He didn't talk about winning. He talked about surviving yourself, about taking back control when you feel powerless, about the moment in the mirror that changed his life. One of his most viral speeches started with this: "You think self-control is about grit, about pushing harder. But it's not. It's about awareness. It's about saying, 'This is hard, but I am harder.' I lost everything because I didn't know how to stop and check myself. I blamed the world. But the truth is, I wasn't losing to the world, I was losing to the man in the mirror. The moment I took back control, that's the moment everything changed." In the audience that night was Emily. She didn't come as his girlfriend. She came as someone who wanted to see the man Marcus had become. They talked afterward. Not about the past, but about the future. She told him she was proud of him. That meant more than any award, any applause, any promotion. Marcus's story wasn't one of perfect redemption. He still had off days. He still battled the same voice in his head. But he had tools now. He had ownership. And most importantly, he had perspective. When people asked him the secret, he always said the same thing. Control isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. You won't win every battle. But if you learn to pause, to breathe, to choose your response, you'll win the war. And so, the man who once stood broken in a bathroom now stood tall in auditoriums. The man who once let anger rule him now taught peace. The man who once lost everything to his ego had finally reclaimed everything through humility. It all started with 5 words. A whisper from the past. A challenge to the present. Get control of yourself. And Marcus did.